Today, let's talk about a feeling that's probably more common than we think, this deep, nagging feeling of distrust in life itself. We're going to explore the journey from that feeling of constant uncertainty to a really profound sense of peace.
It really all kicks off with a question. Have you ever felt that? That compulsive need to explain everything, to have the perfect answer, to always be right? It's this drive to try and force some kind of order onto a world that, let's be honest, often feels pretty chaotic. Well, it turns out that feeling points to something way, way deeper than just a quirky personality trait.
So here's the roadmap for our explainer today. We're going to start by really nailing down the root of this distrust, what our source calls the core distortion. Then, we'll see how it plays out through the personal stories of two different guys, Henry and William. From their experiences, we'll uncover the cure they both discovered, which is pretty amazing. And finally, we'll look at the ultimate goal, a state of what our source material calls absolute divinity.
Okay, first things first, let's get right to the heart of the problem. This constant need for control, for certainty, it isn't just a psychological tic. The source material frames it as a spiritual issue, a fundamental distrust in the very fabric of life itself.
According to our source material, this distrust is tied to an imbalance in what's known as the third eye chakra. You can think of this as like a spiritual center that governs our intuition, our perception, our ability to see beyond the surface of things. So when it's out of whack, the world can start to feel really threatening and unreliable, which makes us feel like we have to constantly manage it with our intellect.
And this sets up a constant battle inside our minds. On one side of this mental scale, you've got this desperate goal, certainty. On the other side, this looming threat, chaos. And trying to keep that scale balanced fuels this deep fear that if we let our guard down for even a second, we'll be deceived or we'll lose control completely.
So what does this actually look like in a person's life? Let's take a look at the story of Henry. For him, this struggle with distrust was a deeply emotional one. He felt almost paralyzed by his doubt, just unable to truly connect with the world around him.
This quote really just gets right to the heart of Henry's problem, doesn't it? This wasn't just, healthy skepticism. It was this profound paralysis, an inability to build, to create, or to even move forward in his life. Every possible foundation just seemed to crumble under the weight of his own doubt.
But then, Henry had this incredible breakthrough, a huge shift in perspective. He realized that his inner world, all his thoughts, his fears, the moments of chaos, the moments of peace, they were just reflections passing through. But the mirror itself, his pure awareness, that stayed constant. It was totally unchanged by whatever was reflected in it.
And what's so powerful is that he didn't stop there. He extended this insight to other people. He realized that everyone else has this same mirror quality, and that created this profound sense of connection. All of a sudden, he wasn't this isolated, vulnerable guy anymore. He was part of a shared, reflective consciousness.
The result of this shift was just transformative. Once he started to trust in the shared essence, the universe stopped feeling like this hostile alien place. It actually felt like home. And in that feeling of belonging, that compulsive need to control everything, it just dissolved.
Okay, so that was Henry's emotional journey. Now let's switch gears and look at a totally different path to that same realization. This is about William, Henry's friend, who faced a much more intellectual crisis. His problem wasn't a lack of feeling, it was a crisis of thought itself.
See, William came to this really startling conclusion. His thinking mind, the subject he always identified with, was essentially a simulation, a construct. It could never directly know the pure awareness that made all experience possible. And this created this deep anxiety for him. What if the silent intelligence witnessing all his suffering was just cold, mechanical, indifferent?
This realization put him at a fork in the road. He saw two paths. Path 1, believe in a witnessing intelligence. If he did that, it meant nothing was ever hidden, and that would create accountability, a reason to be totally honest with himself. Path 2, don't believe. But if he did that, his experiences would feel unseen, irrelevant, and he was afraid that would lead his mind to become dishonest with itself.
So in the end, William's decision was a really pragmatic one. He chose faith. Not because he could prove it with 100% certainty, but because he saw it as the most constructive path forward for his own development. Believing he was witnessed became a necessary tool for his own integrity and growth.
So we've got Henry's emotional path and William's intellectual one. And what's amazing is they both ended up in the same place. They both discovered the same solution, the art of surrender.
Our source material has a specific name for this cure, faithfulness. And it's really important to get this distinction right. This is not about blind belief. It's an active, willing surrender. It's a deep trust that allows reality to unfold without us constantly meeting it with our fear and our resistance.
And faithfulness isn't a destination you just arrive at one day. The Source describes it more like a constant orientation, like a compass. It always points in a certain direction. You could call it a moral north, but its reach is infinite. You can't run out of faithfulness or complete the journey. It's just a fundamental way of being.
And when you make that psychological shift, wow, instead of demanding that the world be predictable and controllable, you find what the Source calls the dignity of surrender. And in that act of letting go, all that nervous, vigilant tension that fuels distrust finally begins to soften. And you start to see that life is actually a process that supports our growth, but only when we stop meeting it with suspicion.
All right, so if faithfulness is the path, where does it actually lead? What's the destination? Well, our final section explores the ultimate state this whole journey can bring us to, a shift from constant striving to a state of pure wonder.
The ultimate goal is the realization of what's called absolute divinity. And here's a good way to think about it. Faithfulness is like a single drop of water from an infinite ocean. The aim isn't just to experience the drop, but to realize that you are already part of the entire ocean, the entire ground of being. This leads to a fundamental shift in how you even see yourself. You stop identifying as a person who has awareness, and you start to recognize that you are the awareness itself, the luminous source of all perception. You're that unchanging silent witness that both Henry and William discovered in their own very different ways.
There's this powerful quote from our Source that just wraps this whole idea up perfectly. It's about transforming the universe from a system of demands we have to meet or a puzzle we have to solve into a revelation, something constantly unfolding, just waiting to be received by us in a state of pure, open awareness. Which really just leaves us with one final thought to sit with. What if all our striving to figure things out, to be right, to control the outcome? What if it's all been a little bit misguided? What if the true goal isn't to understand life, but simply and profoundly to receive it?